People are coming in, Peter.
Okay.
They can't hear me. They can hear me, but I can't hear them.
No, so you won't be able to hear them.
When I see it, we'll see a few more to come in now.
Yeah, you can wait until whatever number you want to see.
Then I'll introduce you, Peter. There's a few more to go. Still moving up.
I can't see the figures. How many people are there around?
We don't know.
Yeah, we'll see once the session starts. I can go in and chat you how many registered, though.
24 come in so far.
Perfect. So you can start whenever you'd like.
Maybe we should start at 25, 26, still climbing, 27. Okay, we better start now. Hello, everybody out there in the darkness. I have an honor for me to be here, to be on screen now and introducing another person from Europe, Peter Kraus from Cleff. I haven't asked him how he pronounces his name, but I'm doing my best at the moment. I should have done that earlier. He said he's raised his thumb to me. Now, Peter, we're very fortunate to have Peter with us because he is such a significant person in European publishing. He's president of the Federation of European Publishers, and he's about to become the managing director of the Börsenverein, which is an unusual organization, special German organization, which combines publishers and booksellers. And it is also the owner of the Frankfurt Book Fair, which is just the biggest event for publishers in the world. And it's much bigger than Book Expo, for example, which I've been to here. It's a wonderful thing. I missed it this year, unfortunately, but Peter was there, I'm sure, and having a good time. It's a little bit like the Charleston Conference, but for publishers. Now, Peter, I'm not going to say any more. We're going to have questions. Please put questions if you wish, into the chat. Okay, so you go ahead then, Peter. I'm not going to say any more, just to say welcome.
Thank you very much, Anthony, and pleasure to be with you virtually. And as you can see here in northern Germany, in Hamburg, it's pretty dark outside. So I envy you a little bit. In Charleston, you got sunny daylight, hopefully. So let's start with a quote from good old Seneca. It's not because it's difficult that they don't dare. It's because we don't dare that it's difficult when we talk about post-pandemic challenges and what we can do with that. Publishing, dear ladies and gentlemen, is a key industry for maintaining and strengthening Europe's competitiveness and individual fulfillment. Our industry needs, as any industry, a fair framework and freedom of expression to continue to play its role we have. Talking about the market size, it's been last year 22 billion euros, that is around 26 billion US dollars. That's the size of the direct revenues in the European publishing market from publishers. And that is, we come back to that later, by coincidence, the net profit, net income of Facebook. So this means what 140,000 people who are directly employed at publishing houses produce and make as a revenue equals the income of Facebook. You see why I mentioned it later. We've been in interesting times, to put it mildly, during the COVID crisis. There's been 3 lockdowns in Europe. And many countries like your home country in the US, like New York, for instance, has been hit very hard by the COVID impacts. Bookshops were closed. Nobody could go to theaters. People were sitting at home and all of a sudden had to deal with working mobile. Fortunately, we managed by lobbying to convince most of European politicians to take bookshops as core shops, like grocers, like butchers. So many bookshops could open as soon as possible again, but people were not allowed to enter the shops. Instead, they had to deliver from the threshold, or we started innovative things, which is also good for reducing our carbon footprint by doing bicycle delivery. And one good thing of the crisis was that many booksellers reinvented their online sales, like you have in the US with bookshop.org. This was also true for many German and European colleagues, that they were being innovatively serving their customers. While as Amazon, for the first weeks of the lockdown, funny story though, they stopped delivering books and instead were busy with delivering toilet paper in Germany, red wine in France, and other things. As you can see here, a little overview of the European market in 2020. This is compared to 2019. You see many countries were hit hard by the lockdowns. There's been strong decreases, especially in Eastern Europe, in Portugal, Spain, France, and the UK and Ireland. While, as you can see, astonishingly enough, that the Scandinavians, Denmark, Norway, Finland, and Sweden, and Iceland were doing well. How does this come? Because online audiobook licensing grew immensely. That's probably those from Sweden, excuse me, but when it's very early dark and you're sitting in your blockhouse, you like to listen to an audiobook probably. We get, in Europe, we got different support country by country from the governments. Some helped us a lot, like in Italy, for instance. This leads to a strong recovery in 2020. These are figures mostly first 3 quarters compared to 2020. You can see all green here. That's because many states, like in France, in Spain, in Italy, in Germany, helped the creative industry, for instance, by directly giving money to them. But also, this is for you as librarians, an interesting point. The Italians made a triangular help. They gave local libraries money to buy books from local bookshops, thus helping both the libraries and the bookshops, and indirectly the Italian publishers, because they sold more books. When you compare it to 2021 to 2019, so before COVID, you can see that many countries do well in Europe, except Germany and Ireland with a mild decrease. We don't have any figures yet at the European level from Scandinavia and Eastern Europe. But you can see here that overall we did quite well by being innovative and by getting help from the state or by helping ourselves. But I don't want to look too much into the past, but into the future, and see what are the future post-pandemic challenges from a European point of view. Theoretically, we must say we don't know. All I can say is that it's from VUCA to BANI. What does this mean? Most of today's strategies are still based on the assumption that our world is VUCA. That means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. However, futurologists describe our present and future world no longer as VUCA, but as BANI, that is brittle, driven by anxieties, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. So again, brittle, driven by anxieties, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. What has to be done? Well, we can counter brittleness through resilience and robustness. Mindfulness and empathy reduce anxieties. Nonlinearity requires context, clear structure, while at the same time being adaptive to an ever-changing world. Incomprehensibility requires transparency and intuition. Does that sound too wacky for you while you sit here in the Grand Ballroom or while you're online watching us? Where's the practical part, you may ask? Well, in concrete terms, each manager, each librarian, each bookseller, each individual will have to find specific answers to themselves in order to become more resilient, more mindful, structured, clear, adaptive, transparent, and intuitive. What does this have to do with the future of libraries, publishers, the book in general? Well, let's have a look at the post-pandemic challenges in detail. First challenge will still be how to deal with the market and lobbying power of the GAFA. GAFA is, because these guys rename each other again, it's for Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon. But Google is now Alphabet and Facebook is now, how they called again?
Meta.
Meta, thank you, Anthony, Meta. So their market power increased, and unfortunately during the lockdown, it increased furthermore. And for the first time in history of the media industry, the majority of content is no longer produced by professional media professionals, but by the platforms, by consumer produced or fan fiction and so on. Alongside well-intentioned and crafted content, fake news, hate speech and trolls are rampant. Recent revelations around Facebook serve to underline this. And I put some figures here to underline the market power of the GAFAs, only from Germany. Google and Facebook own a third of all online traffic in Germany. This means every third activity done on the net by any active website can be traced back to Google and Facebook. This means only 3,000 thousands of percent of the 60 million active domains in Germany generate an unimaginable 86% of digital content. And mathematically calculated, I saw there some guys from mathematic universities. Welcome, chaps. This is a monopoly degree of 98.8%. That's by far more than you had in the US for AT&T or for Standard Oil in the past. There you see some interesting figures when we talk about European perspectives. Annual lobbying expenditure in the EU of the largest car manufacturers, and you might think this is the most powerful sector in Europe. It's 10 million euros per year, while of the 10 largest digital companies, it's 30. So 3 times the money of the car manufacturers is done for lobbying by the platforms. And there you see another thing, the number of stakeholder meetings from the European Commission. That's where the decisions are done. Since the end of 2019 to discuss a legislative package in order to bound the power of the digital concerns is 271. And in every 3 or 4 of these meetings, they were guys from these industries sitting. At the moment, we are currently discussing 2 big packages in Europe. They call the Digital Service Act and the Digital Market Act, where we are trying to lobby on how to reduce the impact of the platforms, to have a look at know your customer approaches, and to fight against piracy. And in 3 or 4 meetings, these stakeholder meetings are the people you'd like to give a therapy to are sitting at the table. So that's one of the big challenges. It's the market and lobbying power of the big platforms. Next one is artificial intelligence. It's I think it's pleasure and pain, and it's good and bad at the same time. Me as a former publisher, I'm a little bit frightened of what to do with text and data mining, and how to handle the phenomenon of so-called emergent works. These are books or any sort of content generated by an artificial intelligence, but based on sources coming from text and data mining. For instance, if you take all the works of Miss Rowling from Harry Potter, and you feed this into an artificial intelligence system, there might be emerging new works, but without the ideas of Frau Rowling, there won't be these emergent works. Who owns these works, and how shall we get it? And if the major issue is keep the consumer hooked at one system, this is a big threat, while at the same time, I see many chances coming out of artificial intelligence when it comes to for instance, better prognosis on print runs, on consumer experiences. This is a good one, but it will cause many, many questions, especially on emergent works. Please keep this in mind. The next one is for us, and I guess it's also true for librarians, for authors, and for booksellers, it's freedom of expression. This is at stake. You see here Mr. Navalny, famous politician, oppositional politician, now imprisoned in Russia. And on the right-hand side, you see a photograph from some demonstrations in Belarus, where the Lukashenko dictatorship is done. And it's not only China and Russia, but in Europe, it's also some kind of self-censorship starting at Hungary and in Poland. For instance, if you're an educational publisher and the state says there's only one school book on modern history on Polish history. And then you mention some famous people like Lech Walesa, former president and founder of the Solidarność movement, without whom there won't have been democratic change in Poland. And nowadays he's gone in history books. And when you want to sell history books in Poland, they say, you might have this in your book, but then the state won't buy these school books. So self-censorship is economically driven, but it's the same threat as not being able to go on the street and stand up for your rights. And ladies and gentlemen, let me put out one thing. Freedom of expression and copyrights as a property right are it's the same coin. It's two sides of the same coin. You can't have freedom of expression without property rights and thus without copyright, because this enables an author to stand in and to make a living out of what he does, and he doesn't have to live for the state or for anyone to write what is pleased with. Next big worry, and I think this is also, we share librarians and publishers, it's illiteracy. It's increasing. To give you an idea, 1 in 10 adult Germans is functionally illiterate. Every 10th is functionally illiterate. This means, for instance, when you talk about vaccination, if you can't read some information of the good and bad of vaccination, but instead you only keep yourself in your own filter bubble, then you can't reach these people. Also, economically speaking, when every 10th is functionally illiterate, how shall you train and further qualify employees if they're not able to read a manual? It's not only, the word is more than 140 digits in Twitter. And we have to share the passion for fighting illiteracy, I think, because this is the main thing for making up your own mind. Another, talking about literacy, sorry, not to forget that. Every third child in Germany is not read at home. And if you're not read at home, then how shall you find the treasure box of book if you're not used to being read at by your parents or your grandparents or your godfather, godmother? And then for me, it was a kind of emancipation, being able to read myself and no longer being dependent on my grandpa, waiting for him to come when he brought me to bed, or my mom to wait to read out. I could do it myself. And so this is another thing. And piracy is a deep concern too. And a deeper look at who really profits from it and how it's organized, and where do the market expenditure streams go to, and why do they go to piracy platforms. That's worth a speech on its own, and I spare you for any further details. But talking about post-pandemic challenges, so there's the GAFAs, their market size, there's artificial intelligence, there's illiteracy, there's piracy, and one big thing is convenience. We human beings are always, we try to save energy, and convenience is king. And reading, I think you all agree, reading is like doing sports. It's not convenient. It's easier to do binge watching and Netflix the whole evening. But the pleasure it's like doing a run. When you can't run for 500 meters, you never find the pleasure of running 5 miles or so. But once you get started, then you get a challenge to read more. So when you start with a picture book, you end up with your Dostoevsky, probably. I'm not sure. So what does this all mean from VUCA to Barney and these challenges? What shall we do together? And I'm here, by the way, that's an interesting, can you see that? No, you can't. That's a book, no, you can't see it. It's from Ken Mogi, Ikigai it's called. Ikigai is Japanese. Ikigai. Ikigai is what makes you and drives you, what makes you get up in the morning. And there's a saying, once you've found what you love, you do what you love, you never need to work your whole life. And I thought in preparation of going to a librarian conference, that's for a publisher, probably kind of challenge, because one probably might expect to get stoned by librarians for being a representative of a publisher, but it's not true, because I asked myself, why do you want to become a librarian? Why do you want to become a bookseller or a publisher or an editor? You know what? Because we love books. We love storytelling. We like others to be convinced of our hints to find the right book, and to see people sitting in your libraries totally lost in time and space, and going deep reading in a book. So let's see what we can achieve together to make to tackle these challenges, post-pandemic challenges. First thing is we must change our storytelling. We must reach out to a new generation of politicians and decision makers. For instance, in Germany now, after the last election, there's 750 people sitting in the it's what would be in the UK House of Commons. There's 50 new young social democrats, for instance. These are all digital natives. They were not grown up with bookshelves behind them. They were grown up with their two thumbs doing short messages. How do we tell our stories? How do we tell what we do as publishers or librarians? We must make new storytelling approaches. Let's work together to contribute to achieving United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the SDG 17. And moreover, ladies and gentlemen, let's show how much we already contribute to SDG 17. For instance, for equality, for freedom of expression, for education. Education is of paramount importance for a better world. People who are not educated won't understand how to reduce carbon footprint, why to reduce carbon footprint, how to make the best of themselves. And I must say, when we talk about equal pay and not only white men in decisive positions, I think the publishing industry, and I think it's also true for libraries, there are not so many industries in Europe where so many non-male people, female or diverse people, are sitting in directors' chairs or in exec chairs, but in our sector. So talking to the younger politicians, let's see what we do already for education, for freedom of expression, and also for international good relations, for exchanges. I think if you don't understand your neighbor because you don't talk to him or you don't read his books, her books, then how shall you become friends to your neighbor? Next one, we should stand up for freedom of expression and for copyright, as I already said. It's the other side of the same coin, and fight for diversity and inclusion. A more diverse world opens new doors. And this is not also for hiring, but also for making more diverse publishing decisions, and also decisions which books are in your shelves, in the libraries, or on your platforms. I was very glad to see that both the Prix de Goncourt and the biggest UK literature prize went to authors from Africa this year. This opens doors to our society, to Western society, by being inclusive, not only hiring these people, but also reading their books. And ladies and gentlemen, we need to help children to be read to. We need low threshold options for parents who are less well educated. In Germany, when every fifth child leaving primary school is not capable of understanding more complex texts, when after four years at school only. So every fifth child, and there's no one at home helping them in enhancing their reading capabilities. How shall they go on in life? How shall we ever enter university if after 4 years at school in Germany you're not able to read a more complex text? Or this hopping. Sorry for this mess with the presentation. And it's not only women who have to read to children. It's also a good thing for fathers or for grandfathers to help the kids. And if you once open this magic door to books, then you're hooked. And then they go, I read more when I was a kid than I could afford, my pocket money, or my parents could afford. So I knew the local librarians by name in my hometown. And then they said, Peter, there's a new book from this, and the 3 question marks, for instance, that's a Junior's detective stories. So whenever there was a new version, I came and they said, look, Peter, there's a new book for you. And that even increased my hunger for reading. We should stop, dear librarians, fighting amongst ourselves, for example, when it comes to e-lending, and fight together for higher budgets and a level playing field to confront the GAFA. Because, as I said, if their business model is to keep people hooked on their platform, imagine what will happen to your e-lending supply, because this takes time from the consuming platform content. So let's work together and see how we can tackle the other challenges. And let's make more of the United Nations World's Book Day, that is the 23rd of April. Like in Spain, for instance, where similar to flowers at Valentine's Day, on the Dia del Cervantes, books are given as gifts to loved ones. So it's not only flowers on Valentine's Day, on the Dia del Cervantes, there's you give to people close to you, people who love, you give a book as a present. That's great for booksellers, but it's also great. Imagine a book is more than flowers. It's more personal, and why not make more of the World Book Day together? And let's remember what we all have in common. That's the love for books, and that's the thrive for making other people loving books too. Well, when I said the world has been VUCA and now is Barney, ladies and gentlemen, we must all be aware of the fact that change and transformation are leadership assignments. This is also, to my mind, although I'm an elderly manager, I think today's leaders have to take the role as a coach, the coach who guides employees to do things better, not to say others what to do, but to only help and guide others, and to be more delegative in a way. This is how we can cope the new Barney framework. And I'm sure our shared passion for books will contribute decisively to the future of the book. Let's make bookstores and libraries a magnet for those hungry for reading and those eager for knowledge. In Germany, and I think it's not only in Detroit, but I guess US town centers with the convenience aspect and people only ordering online have a little problem, because nobody goes shopping downtown. And if we want to, what we call in Germany, if you want to make a library a so-called third place, that's the place, neither your home nor your office, but the place you like to go. And if it's downtown, then we need to think of ideas how to attract these people going back downtown for shopping and to buy local. This also is an angel circle. If you go and buy locally, then you don't waste too much cartons and transport, because you order everything online and you get package after package. And then this is, for me, it's another thing. And it's up to us. The future will look like what we want the future to look. And if we manage change and transformation together, then we can do something for achieving SDG 17 goals. The French writer Marcel Pagnol said, for the optimist, life's not a problem, but rather already the solution. And folks, let's get more solution orientated and not pointing fingers against each other, but let's look for shareable options. And even in the lockdowns, and this is more than the cartoon you will see now, there's new opportunities. You see this guy, hello, do your bookshelves come with books? I've got a 1:30 Zoom meeting and I don't want to look like a total idiot. And so even these people at home need books. And I hope he starts reading one day or the other. So let us, dear librarians, dear scholars, dear professors, dear booksellers, dear publishers, let us join forces to tackle the challenges and to tackle the market power and the monopolistic structure of the platforms. And let's work fighting for a better world with more people being able to read not only manual instructions to make up an IKEA bookshelf, but also to read books and to help educate themselves better, and to help also strengthen their empathy, because reading is a key to gaining empathy, to understand your neighbor, to understand people from different colors, from different countries and from different continents. So here we are, happy to answer any question. I had 20 minutes time. There we go. Thanks for your attention.
Well, thank you so much, Peter. We can't clap, unfortunately, because we're virtual. I mean, I can't even see what people are doing in the hall. I expect they're being virtuous, perhaps, or virtual. Peter, I don't think I've got any.
We're clapping for you.
The clapping. Oh, thank you. Clapping. Good clapping. That's good to hear. I'm just looking to see if we have anything in the chat box yet. No, I can't see anything there at the moment.
There's a comment that says very passionate and inspiring. Thank you from Natasha. Are there any questions here in the room?
No, I was going to say, Peter, could you say something about the Frankfurt Book Fair? Because though there are some libraries, probably some librarians here who have been, it's not as many as one would expect, bearing in mind it's a great opportunity to see international publishing at fully. There's no equivalent anywhere else.
Well, I must say this year Frankfurt was an experiment. It was last year was virtual only. It was we made the best out of the situation, but you know we are social animals, and it's if you already got a network, if you know each other, then you can handle for a certain period of time. You can handle virtual meetings only. But if you want to make new acquaintances, if you want to widen up your network, if you want to make new contacts, then it's absolutely necessary to go abroad and to go to the book fair. I talked today to a director of foreign rights of a children's book publishing house, and she said she's my age, end of 50. I said, do you think it's still necessary to go to a book fair? She said, absolutely yes. Even if you queue up before the ladies' room, there's the good chance while queuing up to make new relationships, to find new partners, to find new business partners, and especially for younger people who have not the same network as we have, Anthony. It's a must to go there, and also it's a must for. I think the book fairs. Same is true for the Salon des Livres, for instance, in France. This will go more into being a reader's book fair. Like in Leipzig, there's many cosplayers coming. There's many people who are enthusiastic about books. But I hope that the book fairs in Frankfurt, especially also for some subjective reasons, I hope this will be a renaissance of the book fair. So please come next year. Spain will be guest of honor. Will be fascinating.
They have a special library area, which is not as many people going as one would hope. But are you going to build on that? We've discussed this in the past at the Charleston conference, whether you're going to build more ways of attracting librarians to come.
Yeah,
is it something
you're
thinking? You're taking over in March the 1st. I went quite soon. January the 1st, taking over as managing director of the Wilson Variety.
January 1st, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm there's Jürgen Boos, who's the director of the Frankfurt Book Fair. He'll be reporting to me. I'm happy because he's an excellent networker. Also, when it comes to networking with US colleagues. But I think for librarians, it's really interesting. And I can only encourage you to get to know publishers, because it's easier to talk to each other than about each other.
Okay, that's good. Any questions come up yet? I'm just going to look and see if there are any in the chat. I can't see any at the moment.
I don't see any here either.
No. Let me ask another question, actually, if I may, Peter. You showed some figures at the beginning about the amount of money being in the industry, and I think a lot of, this is perhaps a slightly unfair question, I didn't warn you. There is a tendency in the US, where we are virtually, to think of European publishing as being too commercial, particularly in the academic publishing, and that it's actually, whereas in the US, many of the publishers are learned societies, or more of them perhaps, the big ones. In Europe, it's seen as commercial people making money and driving prices up. Now, have you any comment? You must have come across this in Europe, of course, but particularly in the US, people see this in this way. Have you any comment to make to the library audience?
Well, I've been a trade book publisher all my life, so I can't tell you anything about the business model of academic publishers or STM publishers. All I can say is that there's a cross-financing of some cash cow products which enable any publisher to do some exotic other little bit of the main streets thing. I think it's greed is for good reasons one of the 7 deadly sins.
Somebody here, a question for Natasha. You mentioned only Germany and Ireland saw book market decreases during the pandemic. What do you think caused the growth in most European markets?
Thank you, Natasha. I think one thing is that when it comes to fictional books, that many people who are interested in color were hampered from going to either theaters or cinemas or ballet. So when you're interested in culture, you turn into books because there's no alternative. On the other hand, people found back the good old book or for reading at children, because there's not too many things to do. And I hope this will remain, because once, as it's like I said with doing sports, once you got a little, you get a better condition to run, then you're used to running. I think for Ireland, there's also an impact about the Brexit issue with your British neighbors. And for the Scandinavian world, it's a sharp increase of audiobooks.
Good, that's very helpful. No, anybody else has any questions? But I can ask another one. I've got other thoughts in mind, but so yes, we talking about interaction between the publishers and librarians. Are you intending, as in your new position, to interact more with American bodies? And if so, which ones are you thinking of? What are you thinking of doing? How are you thinking of working together? It's always been talked about, but it doesn't happen as much as one would like. Working together with common aims.
Well, I can't tell you concretely because I have not yet started my job, but I think that the 2 biggest non-Chinese book markets and also the biggest librarian markets of the world should work closer together. And in Germany, for instance, I guess it's true for the US too. It's in a federal state. It's the local communities who are responsible for the budgets of the libraries or the universities, or it's the state and not the entire government. And this makes things more complicated. And but we have to tackle this to say we need more budgets if we want to fight illiteracy. And I'm very, very open to supporting any librarian in getting bigger budgets.
Good. That's good. There was a question here has appeared from Laura. Laura asks, the publisher book shop library dynamic you mentioned, where government assistance during the pandemic helped them help each other. Do you see there being opportunities to carry that model into the post-pandemic world?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I do, because it's in a free market world. It's the easiest way to giving subsidies to the creative and cultural sector without creating too many administrative new roles. Imagine you would say, like I said, with the federal system, you would say, I donate money or I give a subsidy to librarians with one condition, that you buy locally from your physical books from your local bookshop. Then this is an angel circle. It's easy to handle that. It's easy to handle that. And figures in Italy show, if you have a government who is pragmatic enough and understands the importance of librarians opening doors to education and to the wonders of being a reader, then we should carry on with that. Whenever I'm in Brussels, I tell this Italian success story, and my successor as a president of FEP, that's Riccardo Levi. He's Italian, He's working closely together with the Italian government. So he's very street credible, we could say, because he made this thing. He made the thing up, and yes, we should do this. And happy to supply you with more information about how the Italian way was done, because it's fascinating. It helps everyone.
I wonder if that could translate into the US more, because Germany is very good, and Germany and Italy are very good about supporting bookshops, I would have thought. But things are better in the UK than they were. And I think in the US also, independent booksellers are having a renaissance, if anything. But I mean, we're not quite sure what the dynamics are here, what is causing this. In spite of the fact that most people buy their books through Amazon now, there's a renaissance. And is it a question of individual knowledge or help from by the booksellers? Do you know?
I think it's a question of serendipity. Serendipity means that by coincidence something is detected as a wonderful new idea, as a wonderful new technology, or as a wonderful new insight. And my most beloved reading experiences this year were a result of serendipity from some local booksellers, some enthusiasts, some crazy booksellers who said, you have to read this, for instance, this Ikigai book from Ken Mogi about the Japanese art of living. I wouldn't have found it through Amazon, and even artificial intelligence can't give this recommendation. So it's serendipity which drives it, why you go back to your local bookshop.
So Maria has written on a comment, I love the information you gave about Italy subsidizing libraries and thus supporting related industries. We need to get better at emphasizing the impact libraries have on society, even beyond literacy. That's an interesting question about the role of libraries. Have you any comments to make on the role of libraries, Peter, which on the basis of your experience of libraries in Germany and in Europe in general?
Well, I don't see libraries as our opponent, as long as we don't try to, we should look at the common denominator, not what separates us. And, it's a stony way to get bigger subsidies from your local community or from your state, but it's better than lobbying for copyright exceptions and thus making it hard for authors as well as publishers to make a living out of it. So I'm more inclined to cooperating than to confront each other, because there's other people I'd like to confront, like the gaffers.
Laura has written something else now. Serendipity is why we try to get students into the library stacks for research as well. That's something I was able to do when I was an undergraduate at Cambridge, which I was fortunate, because most libraries shut off the stacks in the academic libraries. But this is a very interesting comment. I don't know what library Laura looks after, but it's a wonderful thing to hear that they're allowed browsing in the stacks. It's a great thing.
And it's in personal enrichment and separates, or it shows that any specific student is not like the rest of the herd, so to speak. If you only look at the recommendations from your professor and read what everybody reads, you don't get new insights. And I was working, I had to finance my studies myself because my parents were, for several reasons, not willing or capable of doing that. And I worked in the university library, and I was the only guy there. So I had to handle all these big issues and volumes, Yeah, but there were many students coming to ask the librarian for some extra hints. So for instance, I'm studying sociology, politology. Do you have any special idea? That's serendipity. And this is what makes a certain magnetism, that you come back to a librarian and say, you gave me this interesting, should better read this hint. And no machine can do that.
No. I think this is very true. And this is something I'm going to talk about myself tomorrow, actually, in passing. But I think the presence of the role of librarians is such a big one, isn't it? Potentially more than it is often in practice, unfortunately. Yeah.
And please, let's work together. That's being confrontative to each other is the best thing we can do to help the platforms grab the attention and do what they're doing.
So we've only got 1 minute to go, and I'm going to say, I'm sure Katina would agree with me in saying it'd be wonderful if next year, when we're able to move about more easily, you will come to Charleston and have the Charleston experience, which we're both missing at the moment, because it's a great place. You meet people all the time who you wouldn't meet otherwise, because you meet them in the elevators, you meet them in the aquarium, you meet them all over the place. You meet them where you have coffee and so forth. And this is the wonderful, and this is another thing rather like Frankfurt, the Messe. But I mean, I hope this I can say, we hope you'll come back again, and we're going to lose. It's now 6:15. But it's my 6:15. It's what time is it? It's my 6:15. So it's time means we're going to be shut down any moment. So I think that's right, isn't it, Leah?
Thank you very, very much. This was a wonderful presentation. We've all enjoyed it here in Charleston. Applause from.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dankeschön.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, and hope to see you next year in Frankfurt and then in Charleston.
Yes,
I hope so.
absolutely.
I wish you a good continuation of your conference. Stay safe and keep on reading.
Yeah, keep on
Thank
reading.
you.
Good. Goodbye then.
Bye.
Goodbye then, Peter.